Okay, so I have Mac 11 open in my computer, and I will open this photo in develop mode. Let's see what happens. Let me know if I'm sharing develop mode or if I'm still showing you manage mode. Okay. All right. So obviously, you probably are able to tell that Mac 11 now has this new masking panel, which is almost the same masking panel available in Ultimate 2025. And so now we have incorporated the capability of selecting either the subject, background, sky, or objects with AI, and basically one-click operations, or very intuitively draw around what you want to select so that you can edit. So, for example, I have this photo open, and if I select subject, ACDSee will quickly select my subject. And it did a really good job at selecting my car. Now, when you click on select subject and when you click on any other of the masking options, once you create your selection, you will see it displayed in red, just like it's showing here. And you might say, oh, there's some areas that are missing. And yes, um, those areas are missing, but it's really easy to change and perfect your selection because this mask has become now a brush mask. And what does that mean? With my left click, if I draw on top of my image, now I've incorporated this red line here, to my selection. If I right click and drag, then I am removing from my selection. So I went ahead and clicked on select subject, and I can see that there are some areas that are red that shouldn't be in red. And so I'm just going to right click on them, just like that. Very easy. And I'm going to select the mirrors, the right side mirror here of the car, which wasn't selected by the AI. And so I'm just gonna do it quickly, but obviously you can, and just like that. So once you've transformed, and now I have all of the cars selected in red, you can see that you do have brush controls. So for example, with the wheel of your mouse, you will see that I can increase the size of my brush like that, or I can decrease the size of it. And so the nib width is basically the size of the brush, and feathering gives you space in between the area you're selecting and the space around it so that you can create a smoother selection. Pressure is basically the opacity of the brush. So if you have pressure at 100%, then you're affecting that area completely. If you have pressure at 50%, then you will see that that red is a little bit more dim than the red on top of the car. And so that will affect the whatever we do with these tools right here, with these sliders, will affect what's in red. Okay, so I will hide my mask, and obviously this car needs to have more light, and I'll just increase its exposure. And I increased it by a lot. You can see that the slider is almost at the end there, but it creates a really natural effect on our car. And now our car pops a lot more than before. You can increase its saturation to make its colors pop more, obviously. Contrast, I don't think I'm going to add so much contrast right now, and maybe a little bit of clarity. Clarity adds a little bit of texture in between or adds a bit more contrast in the pixels themselves, um, creating a bit of more of a texture feeling to your image. So now you can see our subject. If I show our original photo versus the new one, our car is popping up a lot more, making this a really nice edit. So you can go ahead and add more masks to edit different parts of your image. So if you go ahead to the left side here, you will see the different masks area where they will be displayed. And if you click on plus, you can add new masks. So you can add background, sky, you can select different objects in your image, you can select a straightforward brush tool and some gradients. Okay, so let's select the background. And background is basically the opposite of what subject is. And you will notice that now what's red is completely the background, but the areas that I fixed on my select subject, they're still not selected here. So what can you do if that happens? Because I already perfected the subject selection on the car, what you can do is duplicate the mask by going to this icon right here, which says duplicate the currently selected mask. What I did now is I duplicated my mask by choosing this icon here. And what you can do with these masks, you have a bunch of different options. One of them is to invert it. And so if I invert it, now I have everything but my car selected. Everything that is not what's in red here is now red here, if that makes sense. And I can add probably a little bit more exposure to bring the background up to par with the subject so they're not so separated from each other and it feels more natural. And so that's before, and this is after. Now, the all of this is great because using develop mode, this is a non-destructive environment. So, Andy, what this means is that if you create any sort of edit in develop mode and then you hit done, basically ACDSee will record the changes you have done to that photo, but it won't save on top of that photo. So the original file still stays the same. It hasn't changed. And so ACDSee has saved that edit and you can quickly undo that edit. So if you go back, you select that photo again and you go to develop mode, you will see this little arrow, circled arrow on the top, which it says reset to defaults. So if I reset to defaults, my image is back to where it was. And I didn't have to bother with saving this file in a new location, in a new folder. You don't have to do that. You can do that, obviously, using the Save As option at the bottom left. Okay, so let's try another photo where we can use more of the new AI tools. So going back to develop mode, I have this image right here and I can, again, select my subject. And there you go. ACDSee did a really, really nice job at selecting the bride and groom. And I can go ahead and create more selections. So for example, now I'll try to select the sky. Let's try to bring up some details back in the sky. And you can see ACDSee did a really, really nice job at selecting the sky, even in between the areas inside the tree you can see on the top left. It did miss a little area right here on the bottom right, but that is quite easy to fix. So I'm just going to reduce feathering a little bit and just going to brush just like that. Um, a nice advantage that now that these are it's a brush is that you can go ahead and use smart brushing. Let me know if you're aware of smart brushing. Type 1 if you use smart brushing, type 0 if you don't use it or don't know what it does. Okay, let's get into it then. So, smart brushing, Kudo press 2, so you probably use it a lot, I guess. All right, so smart brushing, what it does is it allows you to brush over specific areas, and ACDC it'll be obvious, it'll be a little smarter because if I say um, color, for example, you will see that my brush is a lot bigger than the area that I need to, and I'm just going to delete this so that it's whoops. Let me just take out this selection so that it's clear what it can do. So if I choose, for example, brightness, then ACDC will try to distinguish whatever is inside, whereas you see that cross there in the center. ACDC will gather the brightness information of that point, and it'll say, okay, I'm going to try to select only what's inside that brightness range. And so it shouldn't select the arm, even though the size of my brush is pretty big. And so this allows you to select a bit more carefree. And you can change its tolerance. So for example, if I start brushing, you'll see quickly I was able to select um, that area just by 4 clicks. ACDC was able to distinguish what was the sky and what isn't the sky. And color is the smart brushing option of color is exactly the same thing, but based in the difference in color. Magic is a combination of both. And so magic, you will sometimes realize that it might take you a bit longer, but also um, it can be quicker too. So just try and see what works. So I'm just brushing here to be able to select that area that the AI wasn't fully able to capture, and that's good enough right now. Okay, so let's zoom out again. Remember to zoom out, you have to go to the bottom right where you see these 2 arrows here, and it says fit image. So this will bring your image back to its full size. Not its full size, I mean, this image is a lot bigger than what you're seeing right now, but it'll fit the screen. Okay, so I have my sky selected, and I'm going to hide my mask. And as you can see, I can change the exposure of only the sky very dramatically. So this is how the sky was. And obviously, I'm going to try to bring the exposure down so that I can start seeing more details in that sky. I could even make it a bit more blue by reducing the temperature, bringing it to the cold, maybe a bit more saturation, maybe even a little bit more clarity. And so this is my sky before, a really sort of bleak sky. Now became a bluish, more detailed, more dynamic sky in this cloudy day, which is nice. Um, if I go back to my subjects, if I want them to pop more from the photo, you can probably increase exposure just a tiny bit more, but definitely increase the vibrance. So the vibrance, what's the difference between saturation and vibrance? Let's increase the saturation quite a lot. That doesn't look nice, obviously. My subjects look extremely orange, super bad orange tints, and the colors look obviously too bright. It's too much color. And so the big difference between saturation and vibrance is that if I crank up the vibrance, you will see that their skin tones stay the same. And so whenever you're increasing vibrance, you're increasing the colors that are not skin colors, which is super helpful. Because one of the things that makes photos really bad is when you have bad skin tones. So I increased the vibrance quite a bit so that we can bring more attention to our subjects. And I can again increase a little bit more clarity to bring the texture in their clothes. And I think that's pretty good. So again, let's try to look at the original file versus our new photo. And you will see that the original is lacking life and our edit starts becoming a lot more fun, a lot more colorful. Maybe I can do something to the background. So if I click on the plus icon right here, I'm going to add AI select background. And now I have everything but the bride and groom selected. So maybe I will add a bit more saturation in this case to bring those greens. And this is the nice thing about being able to separate what you're editing is that you can affect. I did want to increase the colors in both the people in the photo and the background, but it's nice to be able to do that separately to give different values of saturation or vibrance either to your subject or the background, because that just gives you more flexibility and makes you um, have a more dynamic photo. What else is really cool about the AI masking, for example, the AI sky masking, is that not only you will be able to select your sky, but it will also select the reflections that are happening in water, for example. So you will see that the red area is not only covering the sky, it's also covering the reflections in the water. So this is super helpful. Maybe I'll make that sky even more dramatic by increasing its saturation, making it a little colder by reducing the temperature, just like that. That's before, and this is after. Obviously, you have all of the other tools in develop mode that have always been available, where you can affect the general aspects of your photo, general exposure, general saturation, vibrance. So the same as we have here um, reserved for our masked areas. And what I really like to do is to add some vignette to my photos. Just bring it a bit to the left here. You will see vignetting is starting to appear on the sides there. Not a lot, just there. And that's really nice. Click done. So another awesome feature of ACDSee is the ability to select objects super easily. So that option, you will see it over here, AI objects. And now if I wanted, for probably if I select the subject, it'll select the seagull plus, right, plus this area right here, plus the brick little house or the brick structure. But what if I only want to select one or the other? Maybe using AI object selection is easier because you can now draw around the subject you want to choose. So I just drew around the seagull, and as you can see, ACDSee has only selected the seagull. I could duplicate that mask, invert that mask, and now I am able to edit everything but the seagull. So if I wanted to make that seagull pop, I'll just reduce the exposure, and maybe the saturation of everything else. And now my seagull pops way more than before. It's before and after. Another cool feature that you can do with the object selection is that you can choose multiple objects. So let's try to find a good photo here where we can do that. Thank you, Brendan. Yes, the icons in Manage. Um, for example, the little purple icon that you see that is like a circle, which looks like this one right here. That's because the image has some developed settings done to it, and the barrel is what Brendan is saying. So there's metadata to that file that hasn't been saved yet or embedded to the file itself. Okay, so I selected the objects and the object selection masking, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to select only my subjects here. My people, the two kids, and the kite above them. There you have it. Amazing detailed selection of that kid. So if you want to add more to your selection, make sure that you click this little icon to the left here. It's in the middle of the object selection controls. Add to current mask. And now draw whatever else you want to select. Amazing. Let's finish by selecting the kite. And now I have my kite selected. So there you go. Completely reduce the exposure there so that you can see that whatever I do is affecting only what I have selected. I'm going to leave the exposure just like that, but I will probably duplicate this mask and invert it so that I can choose only the background. And for example, something cool that I can do is reduce the saturation completely. And now you will see that you've seen probably these edits around in different shops where you have a big poster and just your subjects are in color and the background is unsaturated, desaturated. That's exactly what we did here by being able to select specific areas of our photo using the object selection. I'm going to bring the saturation back, but I want my subjects to pop more. So maybe reduce clarity, reduce exposure slightly, go back to my subjects, increase their vibrance. Um, like that, the clarity. And so that's my original photo. And this is the photo after. Definitely a hard photo to edit. There's a lot going on. But you can see the what's great about the AI object selection. Mark S asks, when you commit changes, does it create a copy or write directly to the raw file? It doesn't write directly to the raw file. What ACDSee does, it creates a what is called a sidecar file, and it saves all the edits onto that file, not the raw file itself. Just to end with the AI masking, obviously, we have manual masking options, which can become super helpful to make um, important edits. So, for example, this photo, I'm just going to delete the mask, is, you know, when I took this photo, I was like, wow, this looks so amazing. And then I took the photo and I was like, oh, the photo looks so bad. How can I bring it back to what I imagined when I took the photo? And so let's try to create some dimension to this photo by bringing more light to specific areas. So I selected my radial mask, and what I'm going to try to attempt to do is to bring more light into this center area of the photo, where these trees, the moss, ah, there we go. Obviously, what is red is selected, and so if I wanted to bring light into the center part of my photo, I would need to invert that mask. So I'm going to invert it. I'm going to hide my mask, and now I'm going to start increasing its exposure. Maybe I'll increase the size of this mask. I'm going to increase the saturation there, only in the center. And all of a sudden, what was a pretty boring flat image now has a clear center focus. Um, it's a very, I mean, it's obviously a very strong edit that I've just applied. You can definitely be a bit more subtle, but I think it works. So you can add a linear gradient and you can also add a straight brush. So if I wanted to, for example, make the water, you know, bring the water brightness up, I'm just going to quickly select the water here. Remember, if you right click, you deselect. If you left click, you select. And now you can you can change the masks, the feathering. So to have a maybe a more of a smooth selection, you can shift the edges, which is something we haven't seen yet, but we'll cover soon. And so now I can increase the exposure of the water, increase the saturation of the water, maybe make it a bit more blue, more greenish. And there we go. So we've used a radial mask and a brush mask to edit our image. Before, after. Let's click done. And one final photo before we move into one of the best things ACDSee for Mac 11 has to offer. Let's see if I can find, yeah, this is the one. So I'm going to select this last pillar here because I feel I should increase its brightness a little bit to bring it on par to um, the pillars that are happening here on the left side. So right now the selection is really, really good. But you will find that sometimes when you select certain objects, you will see that the selection either goes out slightly or is in a little bit. And so you can shift the edges of your selection, which is super, super, it's key when you're trying to select specific objects. So if you bring here on if you look at the mask refinement options on the left, you'll see I'm bringing shift to the left and I'm reducing, the edges are going inwards. And if I bring the edges outward, all I have to do is to bring my slider to the right. So this was asked by a lot of users. We're hoping to have this incorporated. So I can, if I want to make an edit really naturally, not such a strong, um, difference between what I'm editing and what's around it, I can add a bit of feathering. I can reduce the edges, and so now you'll see that the selection is more soft and it doesn't go outside of the pillar. So I'll increase the exposure, some saturation, and that's it. This is before and after, and now those pillars to the right um, have a much similar look to what's going on the left side of the photo. Before, after. Okay, so the other huge, huge feature that we've added on Photo Studio for Mac 11 is AI Super Resolution. So are you aware of AI Super Resolution? Have you seen it in ACDSee for PC? Or is this the first time? Yes, it does make a sidecar file for JPEGs. Whatever goes to develop mode, um, there's a sidecar file that is created so that the edits don't affect your original photo. Okay, so super resolution. Maybe some of you are using certain tools to increase the size of photos and not lose details. And not even not lose details, but try to inject details, try to make old photos, lower resolution photos look better and have a bigger file size. So this is now possible in ACDSee for Mac 11, and this is a huge, huge update. So for example, I have this photo of David Bowie. And if you see the details of this photo on the bottom, you'll see that it's a 640 pixels by 738. Um, so a medium-sized photo. But if you wanted to print this photo, if you wanted to, like just increase the size of it, now you can do that in ACDSee. So if you right click on that photo, go to AI features and click on AI super resolution, this will display the super resolution interface. And what I've done just now is I've increased the size of this photo by 400%. Okay. And how the tool operates or how the interface operates is that it'll show you how that original photo would look if you increased the size of it by 400%. Hopefully you're able to see this through streaming. It's harder to see the difference in Zoom. So that's how the photo enlarged by 400% looks like. So you can see there's a lot of grain to the right. There's a lot of blurriness. Um, and if I apply super resolution, you can see how everything gets smoothed out. Boom. Um, okay, so now I'll click on enhance and ACDSee will enhance that image for me and increase the resolution 4 times while injecting details, getting rid of some blurriness, adding a bit more contrast, more sharpness, overall making that photo better. Okay, so we've enlarged our David Bowie photo And if you can see at the resolution on the bottom, our original is again 640 by 738. Look at the bottom now is 2500 pixels by 2900 pixels. So a way bigger photo and just a really, really impressive. Okay, let's try to put them side by side. Okay, so check out the texture in the hair. This is to the left is our old photo, to the right is our new photo. This is what ACDSee AI super resolution can do to your photos. So if you have old photos, if you have lower resolution photos, just bring them in here into manage mode and you can easily enhance them, increase their size. Um, and it's just an amazing, amazing new tool. You can try it on any photo you want. It does a really, really good job on photos that have graphic material that are like digital graphic design. So for example, this photo of Batman is a meme of Batman, which is goes around, it's all over the internet, and it's usually in really bad quality. So I'm only going to just duplicate the size of this one. So I'm increasing the size of the image just by 200%. And I'm going to zoom in to 100% of my photo. And there we go. So this is how our image looked before and how it looks after. Just an amazing difference. So you just click enhance and ACDSee will do the work for you. Let's try it on this photo. And let's increase it by 400%. Look at that. That's how our original photo looked. And this is how our photo looks after. Click enhance. Okay, so let's compare those photos. And I'm just going to increase the size of the original. Oops. Okay, so let's go back. That's good. Now let's increase this one. And hopefully you can tell the difference in quality. The feathers are clear, the eye is clear, the edges are more sharp. So Jerry asked, can you increase the resolution, not increase the size? And you can. So if you wanted to, and all you have to do in that case is instead of increasing the size, just leave the percentage of the photo. Um, don't increase the size of the photo, just leave it at 100. And so this won't change the side of your photo, but it will inject more detail, unblur your image, add a bit more sharpness. So that's really good to know. Okay, if you want to switch over from Lightroom to ACDSee, you can now import keywords, ratings, and categories from Lightroom into ACDSee. So if you go to Tools and go to Database, you will now see the option of Import Lightroom Database. And this is new. And as you can see, oh, it's labels. So you can now, if you have an older Lightroom database that you wanted to import information from, you can now import ratings, labels, and keywords from Lightroom Classic. So um, super helpful. to be able to do that. A couple of changes in people mode. People mode now has auto advance. And what does that mean? Is if you're trying to add face information before you type the name and then you had to select the person that is coming right after, and it will make it workflow wise, it would be a bit tedious. So now you have auto advance. So if I type David and click enter, ACDSee will automatically change to the following person. So Greg, Greta, Jasmine, Eleanor, Tucker, right? So now it's super easy to add names to your photos. Um, the other thing that's pretty cool is that you can now hover over um, your images, and this will show you the original photo. This is my son, by the way. He was dressed, and this was me actually when I was a baby, and that's obviously not him. Okay, so that's pretty cool. A new change in people mode. Also, people mode used to have a limit of 999 people. So if you had more than 1,000 photos of someone, it would show you this. And I know that a lot of people do have huge databases with photos of one person. So that was the limit before, 999. If you had more than 1,000, you would just see that number displayed on the bottom right of a person. But now we are able to get to 10,000. Garrett asks, can you make in film strip mode the selection of a photo in brighter color? No, you will have to edit the photo first in develop mode, and then you can go to view mode if you want to see that photo. Um, but you would have to inevitably edit it first. So let's take a look at what Richard asked, if you can make blur the background of an image. And we're going to try to do that with clarity. It's not the best, but it certainly helps. So for example, if we choose this, well, this is already a bit blurred. Okay, well, let's try this one. I think this photo we can use the background could be a little bit more blurred. So in this situation, I would select the sub. I'll just go ahead and select the background. And I'll hide my mask and I'll reduce clarity. And so you will notice that it definitely loses a lot of its sharpness. So that's the original, and that is after. Let's see what soft focus can do. Yeah, so soft focus, if you increase the strength of soft focus, that will also soften whatever is in the background. So that's another tool that you can use to start blurring your background. So this is how it looked before and how it looks after. And I can obviously select my subject and make them pop a lot more with more vibrance, a bit more exposure, contrast. There we go. I'll add a little bit of vignetting, maybe a color LUT, why not? Mm, film, and I'll reduce the opacity of film just a touch. And maybe I'll have my background, I'll bring some clarity in again. There we go. Before and after. Thanks for joining, Mark. That's good feedback, Garrett. Thanks. Thank you guys for joining, and I'll see you next time.